Was smoking all my dragons, divine, righteous, almighty, great, overachieving, never slacking. Welcome back to the channel. Today we got something a little different. We got how one mass shooting changed the UK's gun laws forever. And I figured with America going through so much with that, maybe there's something to learn from this. So with that being said, original link will be in the description, and this will be in my American Reacts playlist. Go ahead and binge watch that if you're new to the channel. And we're going to hop right into it. I'm going to probably make it a little bigger for y'all. Here we go.
People are getting shot all around me.
Hundreds of students ran for their lives.
We didn't think this would ever happen.
The shooting at an elementary school in Newtown, Virginia Tech.
Parkland, Columbine High School.
A total of 15 people.
33 dead.
20 children, 7 adults.
More than 240,000 US students have experienced gun violence at school since Columbine in 1999.
I actually think, real quick, Columbine, I'm pretty sure there was a survivor that came to our school and talked to us about that when I was in junior high, if I'm not mistaken. That was sad, man. All these are sad.
But in the UK, it's a different story. Private ownership of all handguns and semi-automatic rifles is banned, a concept unimaginable in America. But how have these two inextricably linked nations ended up with such vastly different attitudes on guns? And how did this massive change in the UK even happen? To understand, we have to go back to 1996, when the Dunblane massacre changed everything.
Grief, shock and disbelief in the Scottish town of Dunblane.
A former scout leader with a grudge.
It is a tragedy without precedent.
16 tiny children died right here at Dunblane Primary School. The massacre, carried out by a man who had licenses for his guns, was enough to change the UK's gun laws forever.
I'm sorry, but who would want to, children, bro? It's sad. It's bad enough that you want to go and just do something like that, but children, why the innocent? Why the innocent, man? Children, bro.
What's truly amazing is that by the end of the next year, it became illegal to own a handgun in the UK.
But how did the UK get to that point so fast? It was mainly due to the activism from those personally affected by the attack.
My daughter Sophie was one of the 16 young children who were shot dead at Dunblane Primary School. She and I were on our own. She was my only child.
Dr.
Rest in power to that child. I gotta say that. Rest in power to that child and to all the children and all the people that was, murdered in these type of tragic events.
Mick North was an academic before the shooting, but after, he found it impossible to return to that life. So he devoted himself to making sure other parents never had to experience his agony by becoming a gun control activist.
Hi.
One of my initial reactions after Dunblane was a feeling that this should never have happened because the guns that the perpetrator used have been too easy to come by.
Dr. North combined forces with other people who were touched by Dunblane, like former Scottish Labour MP Richard Simpson.
Now, he was a doctor at the local hospital at the time, but then after that experience, he changed his entire career, became a Labour MP, and helped to lead the motion to change the gun laws in the UK.
What I discovered was that the then Conservative government was in the process of actually seeking to deregulate the process by which guns were regulated in the United Kingdom. And that really made me very annoyed.
These two men were part of a movement fighting to be heard by politicians. Residents of Dunblane and relatives of victims started speaking out and organising public relations campaigns and creating petitions.
Politicians weren't necessarily used to hearing from the victims of shooting incidents.
Everyone who says, I enjoy the sport, I want to hold the gun in my hand and have the live ammunition. What I say is, you have those emotions for enjoying your sport, but feel the emotions of a parent who is never going to see their child again.
There was a massive groundswell, a bit like the climate extinction movement now. It wasn't highly coordinated or paid for.
So we had a petition called the Snowdrop Petition, which was getting the public to sign up for a ban on handguns, eventually gaining over 700,000 signatures. Within 2 years, a total ban on handguns had been introduced in this country.
By 1999, over 165,000 guns and over 700 tons of ammo had been surrendered.
There was a lot of opposition to it, and it was suggested that it would actually badly affect people who used guns for sport, but it hasn't done so.
What we did was a major achievement, and I'm very satisfied with what we were able to do.
That man took action. And, you know, there's a lot of people who, when they go through tragic events, they don't recover. And that's not to say that he's emotionally recovered, but a lot of people will be so focused on their personal trauma that they forget that there's others in the world that are affected and that may go through the same thing. So the fact that he said, you know what, I'm going to take this in my hands and I'm going to get up and not just fight for my child, but fight, you know, because so this doesn't happen to someone else's child, that's pretty honorable.
Dunblane happened. The gun laws were overhauled before Columbine even happened 2 years earlier. It's like the precedent was set. We knew what was starting to happen across the world.
And 2 years later, on April 20th, 1999, 2 teenagers shot and killed 12 fellow students and a teacher at Columbine High School near Denver, Colorado. Just like Dunblane did in the UK, Columbine shocked Americans. It wasn't the first school shooting in the US, but those images captured on live TV set something off that had ripple effects throughout the country. And just like in Dunblane, no one was closer to the situation than the victims' parents.
I'm the father of Daniel Mauser. He was one of the students killed at Columbine High School. He was 15 years old.
Like Mick North before him, Tom...
For all I know, that might have been the guy that came to the school. You know, I faintly remember. You know, but I remember whoever it was that came to the school. They were telling a story about how, you know, there was a so-called black kid who got killed in Columbine, and I remember them saying he just kept, you know, saying he wanted his mother or something like that, and he got killed. He was called like some racial slurs. I mean, it was a lot to that. You know, it was a lot of innocent people, but that sticks out to me specifically, especially I'm a mama's boy, so that definitely gonna stick out to me. You know. Sad, especially I remember being a kid hearing that story, and you a kid, you a mama's boy, you kid. That's like unimaginable situation. So that stuck with me, you know. Man, you know, Columbine was that was like they said, it set off a ripple effect. You know, that was horrible.
Devoted his life to fighting for gun control, even taking a year off from work to lobby at the state capitol.
Just 2 weeks before Columbine, at the dinner table, Daniel asked me a question based on a conversation that he had with other members of the debate team. He said, "Dad, did you know there were loopholes in the Brady Bill?" Brady Bill is a national law that requires background checks to purchase a gun. And I just kind of blew it off. He was then killed with a gun that was purchased through a loophole in the Brady Bill. I mean, how could I not act on that? To me, that was very prophetic. And it made me realize that when we have loopholes like that, when we have so much carnage in this country, we have to do something about it. I became very vocal, active.
And Tom did make some very real progress on a state level soon after, helping to introduce a bill to close the same gun show loophole he and Daniel had discussed over dinner. In 2000, the public voted and passed Colorado's answer to the Brady Bill by an overwhelming majority of about 70%.
I felt that I did something to honor Daniel. I did something in response to something he brought up to me.
But this small victory at the state level in Colorado was overshadowed by strong national backlash against gun safety laws. Barely a year after Columbine, then NRA President Charlton Heston gave this famous threat.
"From my cold, dead hands."
In America, we are so wrapped up in individualism and rights that we say, well, no, we can't do that because it might possibly affect my rights. And for a lot of people, that's more important than what could possibly happen to them or their neighbors. It's a cultural issue that is very starkly different between us and other nations. I think it's shameful in the U.S. that we have failed to really react in any significant way.
Since Columbine, the narrative in the US around gun rights and gun control has only become more polarizing.
Restricting law-abiding Americans from acquiring guns is obviously unconstitutional.
Is it time to repeal the Second Amendment?
The left has their rigid, radical, anti-gun agenda.
Hell yes, we're going to take your AR-15, your AK-47.
In the US, barely any federal gun control laws have passed since Columbine. In fact, experts say the most significant change in gun law is when politicians let a Clinton-era assault weapons ban expire in 2004, making assault weapons like AR-15s legal again. Since then, the AR-15 has been used in almost every notable mass shooting in America. And the problem continues to get worse. The US has more firearms per person than any other country in the world. And it's the only country in the world that has more guns than people. And the US gun homicide rate is 25 times that of other high-income countries, including the UK.
The main problem is not necessarily the Second Amendment, but how that has been interpreted.
In America, there needs to be an understanding of how to tighten the law without grossly infringing on what are perceived of as rights under the Second Amendment.
But it does seem ridiculous to use the words of the Founding Fathers to decide how you control or don't control weapons that are usually used in war zones.
There have been so many mass shootings since Columbine that many Americans feel hopeless about reform. The fact remains, however, that 61% of Americans do support stricter gun laws. And there are many potential changes, such as closing the gun show loophole or restricting assault weapons, that would make a huge impact and would not go as far as a total ban on firearms.
It takes a long time sometimes. It's not just changing the laws. You also have to change culture to get people to be willing to change the laws.
And perhaps there'll come a time when enough people vote in politicians who will be supportive of the gun control measures that America needs and deserves.
No one has kids so they can buy them bulletproof backpacks. You have kids so that they can hopefully thrive in a better world than you did. We really have to ask ourselves if we're giving them that opportunity.
Wow. So how I personally feel about after watching that, like I said, you know, rest in power to everybody that lost their lives to gun violence, in unfortunate circumstances like that, like tragedies. When I was in high school, Binghamton, New York, right? I was in high school. You can look this up. There was a shooting where a man went inside the Civic Center. Binghamton, look up, search Binghamton, New York, Civic Center, CIVIC Center. And he went on a rampage and shot people. I was in school right across the street. Literally, at the time, they shut everything down. We had to hide under desks. Military came into school, you know, walking. You know, they had to patrol the hallways with big guns, and you could hear the shots going off. We were so close. And the dude just went on a rampage, man. And, you know, he killed so many people. And I remember it being on, you know, national news, everything. So I know how it feels to be like, whew, you know, damn, what's going to happen? It's not a good feeling. I know how it feels to see people in fear of just the unknown danger. But with that being said, I also, you know, on the flip side of that, I believe people should be able to protect themselves, especially when you're dealing with what we're dealing with, as far as not knowing if, you know, there's a big distrust between the people and, you know, the government in America. So people feel that they need to protect themselves, and they don't want that right taken away. My thing with it is just, I feel like people should really get mental evaluations. It's the same way I feel about martial arts. Look what it's become in a lot of areas. There's a lot of people who go to jiu-jitsu just because they really just want to snap somebody's arm. People who box just because they really want to just know how to break someone's jaw the right way, so or nose. You know, say all these martial arts. I mean, Muay Thai just wants to kick, so they just want to show off. Ego thing. They really just something wrong up here, and they be wanting to hurt people. So I personally feel like, you know, we should look into that. We should look into mental. People should get mental evaluations before they're able to um, purchase certain things. Just like I said, I believe the same thing about martial arts. You know, where's our Mr. Miyagi teachers? You know, instead of everybody just, oh, I just want to be a fighter and knock somebody out. So it does come down to culture and where we are as a people and what frequency are we on as a people? How are we thinking as a people? Is it a destructive culture? You know, all these things play a part. It's so much elements to it, from music to all that, to parenting, and that's why I believe if someone wants to go purchase a big gun, they need to have a mental evaluation and a background check, for like a serious background check. I believe that with officers too. If someone wants to be an officer, if someone wants to be in a position where they have control over others or others' lives or certain, I believe they should get a real serious mental evaluation and background check, and that's how I feel about it. That's how I feel about it. Illegal guns is all over the place. If we talk, you know, people gonna get their hands on guns regardless. But if you want to legally, I feel like you should get. But it says a lot that U.S. has this many mass shootings compared to all those other countries. It says a lot about us in the U.S. There's no. Everybody wants to argue statistics, all that. In U.S., we always want to be at each other's neck, race baiting or debating about this, that, Republican, Democrat, blah 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 blah. But the facts remain that we're bugged out over here. We got to get some things correct. It's on a lifeline over here. I think we can all agree on that. So we need to put our differences aside and focus on, okay, we as, for lack of a better term, the good, righteous ones here that want to see a change. How can we focus on that? Because something went horribly wrong here. Horribly wrong. I'm gonna wrap this up. With that being said, guys, you know, I'll be back soon. Let me know in the comments what you guys think about this video. And let me know your opinions. And much love to everybody. Be safe out there.